On that note, I want to welcome Soumya. Soumya, as you know, is leading this entire charge for acting, of course, on behalf of the academic team, and has taken you through the first 5 grades. And today she kind of completes the full circle and takes you through grades 6, 7, and 8. Soumya, all yours.
Thank you very much, Dale. Welcome everyone. And I'm so happy that many of you have been with us from the initial grade under the hood series for acting syllabus, and many of you are new. So welcome. And I would not, stretch the conversation much longer. So let's just get started. So you all know that for today's webinar, we'll be first looking at the importance of acting syllabus and how acting syllabus would help you as a teacher, and also if you are looking at improving your acting skills or life skills for that matter. And while we are doing that, we will also be breaking a few myths and knowing a few facts about the acting syllabus. Also, the construct of the Trinity College London acting syllabus for grade 6, 7, and 8. And while doing that, we'll be looking at the learning outcomes, the assessment criteria, and the attainment descriptors. You will also know that it is not possible to take any Trinity College exam without it relating to a transferable skill or a 21st century skills. So we have a bunch of skill sets that we address to with the tasks that we have in the syllabus. All right, so the best part about any strand of learning and teaching under the drama syllabus would be is that it's not just the content doesn't have to be about the skill. The content can be anything. It can be any subject. You can choose a topic under science or mathematics or English or any language that you prefer, and you can still teach the techniques of drama, be it acting, speech, communication skills, or whatever strand of drama that you want to teach and learn in the class. So therefore, it becomes a very, very important tool for a teacher, where you're not just combining the subject, but also the skill that you want your candidates or your learners to take home. And if you are looking at making yourself or upgrading yourself as an actor, then this particular syllabus would open doors for what you already know, to get yourself assessed for what you already know, and you want to have a certification for it, and also learn more, because it does not require any prerequisite grade or qualification. You can learn the skill within the knowledge that you have, and also increase research more, and then choose, for example, if you are very much comfortable with Indian literature, or say you are very fond of Indian English writing, then you can include those very well into the tasks that are given. Because the syllabus does not tell you about what literature or what world literature do you have to follow. It tells you what skills you have to show as part of your assessment criteria, the standards that you have to achieve within the skill sets and not the content. So the general process of preparing for any exam under the Trinity College London syllabus is research. The candidate has to do a lot of research and understand what he or she is comfortable with and what more needs to be learned. And then the material is selected. After which, there is a very rigorous training which is done in order to achieve vocal, physical, and any skill-oriented aspect of that part of the exam. And then finally, you get to analyze what are you doing. and add on to everything that you already know, like assimilate the experiences that you have had as a learner in any subject or even within life. And then after you assimilate, you come up with something which is creative, more imaginative, making it an original piece of interpretation. And finally, you get to present it. So you would see that in this whole process, all these jargons that you see in front of you, communication skills, interpersonal skills, creativity, imagination, working under pressure, because you have things like improvisation, which is done on the spot within a particular time limit. And then you have critical thinking, because that's what is assessed in the reflection, in the discussions that one has with the examiner. And then organizational skills, because you not just have to perform, you have to manage whatever you take along with you in the examination room, which means it can be as simple as the hard copy of your presentations or your properties. So organizational skills, and you have to time your performance. You have to be very careful not to get carried away with your energy, with the stress that you might or might not feel for the examinations. And of course, address an invisible audience. Of course, there is an examiner in front of you, but a few tasks require you to imagine an audience in front of you and act accordingly or perform accordingly. So that would increase the confidence. And you all know that this kind of rigorous process would definitely get translated into real life, which you can call as life skills. Therefore, you have all these beautiful terms that you see in front of you. One particular aspect over here, or which is highlighted in green, healthy self-image, has been the foundation of every task that is designed under the Trinity College London syllabus. We'll talk more about it. I'm stressing on this particular aspect today because when you come to grade 6, 7, and 8, it is about the process. More than the skill, it is about the process and how much do you understand about it. And you cannot get it right without getting the health factor correct. And now for the validation of the certificate, of course, we have the RQF, Regulated Qualifications Framework, and every grade is mapped to it. So you have level 1, 2, and 3 from grade 1 to grade 8, and then you have diplomas which are mapped to RQF level 4 and 6. Now, well, this looks like a progression from learning outcomes to the transfer and application of the skills, but I would like to look at it like a circle, because learning outcomes are the skills that the tasks equip you with while you are learning. For example, if you're preparing for a grade 6, then learning outcomes have been designed in such a way that you are capable of improvisation, of rework, of addressing almost as many genre of plays that are existing in world literature. So all those things. But every task has been described and mapped in such a way that it takes from the 21st century skills that are required in order to live. And then we have assessment criteria. It's the standard that one has to reach in order to get a certificate. And these have been mapped from the learning outcomes. The task constructs are obviously, it flows naturally from the learning outcome. And then we have the attainment descriptors, the below pass, merit, and distinction levels. And finally, the transfer of the learning that has happened through the process. This is directly reflected in the learning outcome. That is why I say that I see it more like a circle, where there's no start, but everything flows in a very beautiful pattern. So each of these has been mapped incrementally grade wise. So you would not see a sudden jump of requirements or learning outcomes that are required for higher grades. It's a gradual progression that happens. The objectives of acting syllabus are a little more advanced than speech and drama, because it involves a lot of vocal and physical nuances. It stresses more on characterization, movement of body, use of space, and it basically what you have learned in speech and drama. Like we always point that it's a pathway. It's a pathway. So you start with speech and drama, and you lead towards acting. Therefore, whatever you have learned in speech and drama as part of your performance and vocal skills will automatically be used and enhanced in an acting syllabus. So characterization, when it comes in, it just not translates into your body but also your mind. You are obliged to analyze, reflect on each character and understand how they feel, what do they feel, what is their connection with the script, with the story, and with the other actors or characters, and how is the whole narrative, you know, beautifully woven together by all these characters, and how it becomes an example of a piece of life. And all this is done through extracts from plays of different styles and genre and periods, and also with devised drama. Devised drama encourages imagination. It encourages on the spot thinking and yeah, critical thinking, creative problem solving. All these are, the other names for devised, drama techniques. So under pressure, acting under pressure, you will be given a situation of improvisation, and you have to come up with the total performance in, say, just 3 minutes. And so we have all these 21st century skills covered through the tasks that are designed for the acting syllabus, and so to say, for all the Trinity College London syllabus that we have. Let me just roughly take you through the difference between speech and drama and acting. I had covered this in the last webinar as well. Speech and drama takes you through your speaking nuances and your performing, which includes how can you present a poem, or how can you present a prose piece, and uh, do all of this while you are addressing a piece of literature. It can be poetry, prose. It also includes play extracts. Taking it a step further is the acting syllabus, where physicality becomes the most important. It takes away major portion of the cake. So while you are speaking, your pitch, pace, emphasis and pause, while you're doing all of that, are you able to translate it into your body? Are you able to translate it into movement? Your choice of movement or your choice of not making a move, how is it, woven into the narrative of the script at hand, and also with the characters in hand? I mean, there's no right or wrong to how it has to be done, because it completely boils down to your interpretation. And if you are able to convince the viewer, in this case it will be the examiner, convince the examiner that you have the required skill set to justify what interpretation you wanted to give the character and relate it to the narrative. Yes, and we'll look into it in detail when we look at the tasks, and I'll take you back to these differences when we go back to the tasks. So coming to the learning outcomes of grade 6, 7, and 8. If you look at the previous webinars where we had spoken about grade initial to grade 5, you would see that there were differences in techniques. But at grade 6, 7, and 8, the techniques have already been learned. And now it's the understanding, the level of understanding which is tested. So when it comes to grade 6, what is required is how imaginatively can you involve your vocal and physical skills into producing an accurate performance, like an accurate performance. There's no flaw that you can see towards it. As you go to grade 7, you are required to sustain the performance. Have you understood the character to such an extent that you can sustain and live the character throughout? from the start of the performance till the end? Is it convincingly portrayed? So that is what is tested at grade 7 level. At grade 8 level, it's a completely different ball game where your skill to direct is also tested. You are a performance, but you are also acting as a director, so you have to keep everything in mind. How does everything in a performance talk to each other, and how is it made into a complete conversation? The imagined characters, the imagined situations, the imagined properties, whether they are actually there or not, the use of it, all of it. And then, or how much do you understand? Do you understand the background of the character? Why and how is the character different from the situation that he or she is put in, or how are they similar? So those kind of in detailed conversations one has to have when one is doing a grade 8 performance. Now, to come to the assessment criteria, there are four major aspects under the assessment criteria. The first is the technical, which will be the vocal, physical, skills, the everything related to speaking, pause, emphasis, phrasing, the way you communicate, talk, your tonality, and all of that. And when it comes to physical skills, it will be how are you using your body, how are you using the movement with regard to the space and the property at hand, if you're using one. Coming to engagement with the material, it would come back again to interpretation and how persuasively you interpret and perform, how convincing and sustained and accurate is your performance. And then the audience part, whether it be an imagined audience or the examiner in front who's addressed directly, it has to be a very confident exchange of ideas and meaning. The meaning should be communicated very clearly and accurately to the audience, which also includes the etiquettes which are required while you're performing. And towards the end, the performance level, whether the candidate is able to give a confident performance, or the candidate is able to own the performance and bring in originality. So all these are different, all these aspects have been divided into four different categories, which come under the assessment criteria. Now, okay, let's look at the details under grade 6, 7, and 8. I would not want you to look at the blue ones because they're mostly about the skills that we've been talking till now. Please look at the highlighted versions. At grade 6 level, one is required. If you look at the last one, demonstrate connection with character, material, and preparation and staging process. So what was required in order to prepare for this certain character, and what kind of staging option have you chosen in order to equip yourself to give a convincing performance? So staging options have to be learned and reflected, not just one or two, but then there'll be a plethora of staging options that are available. So why did you choose this particular one? That is the understanding that one is looking at grade 6 level. At grade 7 level, one has to be very persuasive, convincing. It's not just that you are performing, but you're also able to convince the viewer that this is the right amount of technique that goes into performing this particular character. The viewer is very convinced about it. So it's persuasive in nature. Coming to grade 8 level, the play extracts, the contrasting play extracts that one has to present, has to be presented continuously. It has to be linked. It cannot be separate performances. It cannot be like task 1 and then, let me now get into task 2. It wouldn't be like that. There is no break. It's a continuous performance. We will look at it as we get to grade 8. And then one has to be absolutely sure about the directional choices that are made in the performances. Why, how is it interpreted, and how are you able to convince the examiner or the viewer for the same?
Soumya, if I may just come in for a quick question,
Yeah.
which has come up in the chat. Our teacher is asking, you just now mentioned staging options.
Mhm.
What exactly are you referring to over there specifically? What are the different staging options?
Lovely. So, when it comes to staging options, of course, Trinity very clearly mentions that using an extra prop or a costume would not fetch you more marks or anything of the sort. So, if you happen to use or imagine a certain, for example, when we go into the sample tasks, you will see that the actor is on a high rise building and looking towards another building which is very tall. So, how do you establish that kind of stage while you're performing on a flat surface? You do not have the privilege of having a proper stage, lighting, and all those things. So, what is the creative choice that you have made to substitute the actual setup? That is the staging option that we have, and also there might be questions like, if you are putting it up on stage, what would be your staging option? It can boil down to proper critical staging option based question, but it will also include how have you managed a complicated environment and brought it into a performance which is probably in a very small, in a 12 by 18 space or something like that. So, is that clear, Dale? Was that
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think that's
thank,
good.
thank you. So, um, coming to attainment descriptors, yes, we have distinction. 85 plus is distinction, 75 to 84 is merit, and 65 to 74 would be pass. Anything below that would be below pass. Now, let's get into exams. And of course, performance weighs heavier than all the supporting tasks and the reflection. Nevertheless, the reflection has to be very, very effective at grade 6, 7, and 8 stages. Now, while you are going through acting syllabus, right from grade 4 onwards, you will see these names, contrasting play extracts and things like that. So, which means it has to be different in language styles. A prose is mostly to do with a fluent English piece where there is no poetic gesture or things like that. Verse would be heavily dependent on poetic nature. And then coming to colloquial, it would be very much, what do you say, an example of a certain location or a status in the society. Coming to non colloquial, it will be not very formal, but conversational English. And then you have periods and genres like modern or contemporary text, Shakespearean text, Jacobean, realistic, absurd, and all of that. And coming to the jargons that you will come across while you are doing an acting syllabus would be improvisation, rework, hot seating. And in case of grade 7 and 8, you would also come across the word modification. So improvisation is very far-fetched from the actual performed piece. It is not at all required for the candidate to stick to the dialogues which has already been presented in one of the tasks. Improvisation can be very far away from the original text that was prepared. So there is a lot of liberty. The challenge is how to handle this liberty. This creative liberty, does it distract you? Are you able to compile it and turn it into a very sensible performance within the time frame that is given, or do you get carried away with the improvisation? So that is the challenge in improvisation. Coming to rework, it is already a prepared piece. A rework is always thought of beforehand and practiced for. Therefore, it is probably a character who's removed from the actual situation in the published play and is brought into a completely new situation, or is given certain characteristics and made it a little more difficult to perform and things like that. Hot seating is definitely going to be you in character and the examiner asking you uh, things which are not very clearly mentioned in very literally mentioned in the place. So it can be the background of the a character. Why was this particular thought brought in by the character? What is the background to it? So we'll look into each of it during the tasks, and I will tell you why and what is the difference between improv, rework, and hot seating as well when we move forward. Modification, on the other hand, is another form of rework, but it is given on the spot. So for modification, you do not get time to prepare. It's rework is the one which you already get time to prepare. Modification is given on the spot by the examiner, just like improvisation. You get 3 minutes of time, and then you decide what difference do you want to bring in the character that has been asked to modify. Okay, so grade 6. Two contrasting plays as part of performance and one reworked task, either from task 1 or task 2. And then we have improvisation or hot sitting. The choice is the candidates, whether they want to go with improvisation or with hot seating. But which task to go for improvisation and which character to go for in a hot seating would be chosen by the examiner. So do not get the two confused. The candidate can definitely choose whether they want to go for improvisation or hot seating, but the examiner will choose what improvisation is to be given and what character should be portrayed for the hot seating task. Now, I want your attention at the reflection part of it, because as I said, grade 6, 7, and 8 is majorly about understanding what you're performing. So at this particular level, we have preparation and possible staging options. So I think for the question that was asked, I'm going to address it much more in detail in the coming task that we have in front of us. The first sample task would be the character of Kaja. She's an employee and she works under the master builder. Well, this is a very modern text. It was published in 2017, if I'm not wrong. And it's called The Fall of Master Builder. The original was written by Henrik Ibsen, and it was called The Master Builder. The Fall of Master Builder is the new version of it by Harris. And in this particular play, a builder becomes so powerful that his arrogance and his lifestyle becomes his own end. Kaja is one of the leading female characters, and she is standing on a high-rise building, and she's talking to a nurse, and she's pointing out at a tower, at a building which was built by their company and which was going to be inaugurated by Prince Charles. Unfortunately, the master builder dies, and therefore the monologue. So at this particular point, the questions that would be asked as part of reflection would be, how is the height of the building established as part of your monologue? So though the candidate would be standing and looking at the building and talking, how is the establishment done that it's a high-rise building? And also the line. Let me explain what is the line. So you look at the building, and that's the building. But then you look at the building and you establish the distance between you, and then your imagination travels to the other tower, which is far away. This is the line. This is the imagination that you are establishing. And how do you convincingly do it? How do you bring it into your psyche and also into every pore of your body that you are looking at something which you have made? And you are looking at something which is very far away. This is the depth of knowledge and skill that one is looking at grade 6 level. So another thing that might be asked apart from the staging option would be the preparation. What was exactly the process of preparing for the particular character? How did a 27-year-old Kaja how did you embody the character of Kaja, and what was the process that you followed? So those are the questions which can be asked for Kaja's character. Coming to Fen, which was written in 1983, and it's a feminist play by Carl Churchill. And in this, Wall uh, is uh, is a slave, is a slave in a potato field, and she chooses to leave her family, her work, and her two children for love. And then it's a tragedy. So she ends up having nothing, not the love of the man that she has, and also losing her family. So it is a tragedy. And here she is speaking about the torture of a little girl that she has seen in front of her eyes. And it's a very, very, very emotional piece. So coming to this kind of a monologue, again, a staging option question would be like, how would you establish the absent character of the suffering girl? Because Wall is practically, though she is narrating the plight of the little girl, she's actually seeing it in front of her eyes. So how do you, what was your technique? I mean, you need to probably put into words what you had done on stage. So are you able to elaborate? Is it something that you have studied, improvised, and done it by yourself? Because at grade 6 level, you are expected to bring in your own creativity while performing for the characters. So those will be the kind of questions that you will face for complicated characters and stage settings and preparation for it. Rework. So a rework would be already prepared by the candidate, and it's just like a performance task, but not in a published way. I mean, not from a published text. It would be according to the change that the candidate wanted to bring in that character. So suppose the candidate has brought in a smirk and half a laughter or something like that while she is narrating the tragic incident of the girl's pain. Improvisation for Wall would be completely different from what is published in the play. So the examiner would give something like, if Wall decides not to elope with the man she loves, what would she tell him? So you would see that this is totally opposite to what happens in the play, and therefore gives room for the candidate to imagine and think of those things which would have troubled Wall, which are not literally written in the book, but what would have troubled Wall, because of course it is not easy for her to leave her family and choose love. But how did she do it? So in this particular improvisation, it is clear that she's not able to choose love, and she probably uses family or her financial situation, which makes her work in the potato fields. Those are the kind of reflections that one is looking at while coming to improvisation at grade 6 level. Coming to hot seat, suppose it's Kaja's character. The Kaja character would be asked, what does the master builder look like? Because there's very little of master builder that you see in the new version. The older version has a lot of him in the play, but the new version has less of him and he dies pretty soon. So what does the master builder look like? That would be a hot sitting question to the candidate. Grade 7.
If you don't, Soumya, sorry, I'm just going to quickly jump in with a question from Nishi, which she asks, I'm a little confused about the performance, that's task 1, and then the rework in task 2. Does the piece in the text remain the same?
Yes. For rework, the piece in the text remains the same. The only difference that is brought is either situational difference or a physical trait of the character. That's how the rework goes on, by a stammer, a smirk, or suppose the character is removed from, for example, this rework was for Wall. So Wall is in potato fields. Now she is removed from the potato fields and she is placed in a contemporary world where she is probably working in a factory. So what would her reaction be, staging options be, and how would she interact with the surrounding around her while she is performing? So that would be different. The text remains the same. Improvisation is the only one where you can go away from the, you can choose to stick to the text, but you can also choose not to stick to the text. So those are the differences between rework and improvisation. Okay, let's get into grade 7 now. Grade 7, well, you have three different contrasting play extracts, and you have the improvisation task as the key skill task. But look at the reflection. Here, the questions are going to be about what are the contrasting styles that you addressed? What is the difference between the techniques employed by the writer? What are the changes that you have brought in? And how have you interpreted it? And I also want to quote, when we were looking at the incremental roadmap between the three grades, I used the word persuasive over there. So how persuasive is your interpretation and how does it match the styles that are already at hand? So the first piece I have taken is from a Greek tragedy. Medea has completely has had a broken heart because her lover has ditched her. So her nurse is very, very, very worried about Medea, and she's imagining a situation where maybe it would have been a better life for Medea if she hadn't chosen love. So here is the nurse's monologue for the same. Now, the question that one can be expected to be asked would be, what does the nurse think of love after seeing her, after seeing her mistress being so troubled in her life because of love? What would her ideas be? Also, it can also be because the nurse belongs to a completely different strata of society. Does it affect her decisions about her own life? Would she have the same ideas about love? So it's reading much more into what is your interpretation into this character's monologue. That would be the kind of question which would be asked. Let's go to the second task. This is a book of Sir Thomas More by William Shakespeare. And this is about a Catholic martyr who was against, a Catholic who went against the crown and was martyred for the same reason. So the kind of question that one would be asked for presenting a monologue by the More's character would be the difference in Shakespeare's characters. Can you match or not match More's character to perhaps Julius Caesar? Because we have the same kind of political scenario over there. There is unrest, there is rebellism, and all of that. So what is the similarity or dissimilarity that you find between the two? And how have you used your understanding of Shakespearean writing in order to interpret and perform the character of More? Please do tell me if you need me to explain more. So it'll be a detailed study into why and how did you take the pauses that you took, the stance that you took, and what have you brought in your empathy towards the character, and how did you use it in order to portray the same. The third one is the Tamer Tamed, and it's a Jacobean style, play. And of course, we all know that Taming of the Shrew is where the concept of the Tamer Tamed comes from. So questions that would be asked would be, what has Jacobean style taken from the Elizabethan times? Because they are one after the other. Elizabethan time comes before and Jacobean style comes after. So what has been taken from that to there, and what is the reflection uh, of the taming of the shrew? What reflection do you see in the tamer tamed, and how is it different or similar? Like I said, well, staging options are also covered, but then once the learning outcome is described in a certain way, the questions would be around those things, because it gives the it while you're preparing for the candidate for the task, it becomes very important to study that particular aspect. So here in this case, it is interpretation, your persuasive interpretation of the character at hand. So it will be very few times the staging options, and mostly it will be exactly what is mentioned in the description of the learning outcomes in the syllabus. So let's see how the improvisation goes. So in this, you're at grade 7 level, you do not have a rework. You just have an improvisation piece, which would be given to you by the examiner. So let's place the Jacobian tamer tamed in 2001, and how would this particular character act, react, and speak, because he is placed in India and not in anywhere else. He's not placed in London, but he's placed in India. So what is the difference that you bring in? So here the attention is brought to how much the candidate knows about the local flavor. Can the candidate adjust and improvise in order, improvise in accordance with the local flavor? How much does he or she understand about the culture that he or she is brought up in? So these kind of things are examined and looked into through the reflection tasks. Let's go into the last section, the grade 8 level, and I have highlighted 3 contrasting play extracts in continuous program. And in the reflection, it's majorly the techniques employed in the preparation and the performance, which is where the health aspect comes across. So let's look at what is a continuous program. A continuous program would be a link that the candidate is able to give between all the 3 pieces. So it's not going to be, for my next performance, I'm going to do it. No, it's not going to be that. It's going to be either a theme, which is linked in all the 3 performances, and also it has to be contrasting. So it cannot be from the same period or same style. It cannot be any of those. It has to be contrasting in nature. Also, if you take it a step further, you could also use lines of one monologue and place it into the other and link it accordingly, if you are convincingly able to do that. 2 points which have to be noted while linking the material: it's not assist. The way, the creative manner in which you link the performances is not assist at all. And whatever stage business like property change or costume change one has to do, it has to be done within the performance. It cannot be done. There is no time given, unlike all the other grades. There is no time given for preparation of the next task. So let's see. So the theme that I have chosen as an example is self-realization and tragedy. So the first one is a Jacobian play, a Yorkshire tragedy, where the husband becomes a murderer and kills his wife and 2 children in a fit of rage. The second one is an Elizabethan tragedy. Of course, the famous Dr. Faustus and him having his soul, sold to the Satan himself. So these 2, as you very well know, these are the final monologues by the main protagonists, and they are repenting. They are realizing how bad the decisions have been, and can anything come back while they are, while there's little left of their life. So can anything come back? Those are the what aspects of self-realization that we are dealing. But then towards the end, what has to happen will happen, and that is why it is a tragedy. Both of these plays are a tragedy. Now, coming to the third one, it's a completely contemporary piece where the character of Alice is gay and realizes the fact, and is therefore rebelling against all that has happened to her, face and writes an email. She's writing an email to her parents to tell the same, that she is gay. And at the same time, she realizes that her partner has actually been wishing to change gender. So it becomes a very bittersweet comedy. So while it is self realization, it becomes a bittersweet comedy. Now, the crux here is the link was the theme of realization, and the first two pieces were tragedy. And the third piece that I chose was realization along with a bittersweet comedy. So, how do I persuade the viewer that my choice is correct and that I can make it, I can bring it together as a one continuous program, one continuous performance, and bring all the three from three different styles, and also with two tragedies and one bittersweet comedy? How do I convincingly portray these three things and stick to the requirement of the task? So it would definitely be very, very challenging. But yeah, that's what grade 8 is all about. And coming to modification, so this is where you have modification, which is given on the spot. Very similar to rework. You do not change the lines, but you change your situations or your character traits and things like that. So here, the modification that has been given is the doctor's soul keeps getting sucked away as the dialogue progresses. So I know it would have been a very physical kind of a modification, which would need to be adapted for the performance. And now I will hand it over to Dale.